So, my paper topic that I wanted to talk about today is entitled Chocolate Capitalism, a critique on the participation in capitalism by Black people in the United States. So, I've always been curious about celebrity culture, but more so how celebrities use their platform to incite conversation, specifically high profile Black celebrities. I spend a lot of time on Twitter and I witness how some feminist movements have become mainstream. Hashtag Me Too, Time's Up, so hashtag Black Lives Matter, and how because of the internet, feminist concepts have been made more accessible to the general public for better or for worse. So now you start to see corporations and high profile individuals starting to use concepts that were rooted in feminism, such as, rape culture, racism, colorism in the Black community, and they're now starting to speak on that. I am now also curious of the influence of Beyonce, the corporatization of wokeness, what we categorize as activism, and the distinctions in experience within class. So my research question is, does the participation in capitalism equate to progress? Is the advancement of Black people within the bounds of capitalism progress? And if so, who is this progress for? My focus today is more so an example from Beyonce, and I'm going to be focusing on her two visual albums, Lemonade and Black is King. The frameworks that I will be using are intersectionality and Black feminism, and I will be referencing Bell Hook and Audre Lorde. For the purposes of this project, I acknowledge that there are many differing views on what defines projects from differing waves, and I offer my own definition. So while I was doing research, I was noticing that there was a lot of differing opinions as to what progress actually meant, and nothing seemed too concrete for me. So I decided to go ahead and be preemptive and create my own definition. And it is any rejection of traditional heteronormative racist and classist ideals with the intent of moving towards a post patriarchal society. The second part is very important to me because the intention of being in a post-patriarchal society, and by post-patriarchy I'm encompassing all racism, sexism, because they all tie into post-patriarchy. That intent is what is a step towards the liberation of Black people. So for my methodology, I used qualitative measures such as secondary research and gathered pre-existing literature on class, race, and activism. I synthesized said literature with existing feminist rhetoric for textual analysis with the intent to discover the relationship between class, race, and sex, as well as the benefits for feminism if concepts such as liberalism and capitalism are upheld. So in 2016, and in the wake of recent allegations that of her husband's potential affair, Beyonce released a visual album entitled Lemonade, meant to empower specifically Black women. Now, this album was her first visual album, and when it came out, it was a testament to Black strength and Black power. However, as I was going through research, I noticed that there were very polarizing opinions as to this particular visual album, specifically of Bell Hooks, who claimed that this was more of a facade for the consumption of self commodification. And what I mean by that is essentially that Bell Hooks claimed that this was not a step towards being progressive and this was not a step towards helping feminism. If anything, it was commodifying oneself. In 2020, Beyonce partnered with Disney to create another visual album entitled Black is King. This album featured exclusively Black people from Africa to highlight the regal nature of Blackness. To be Black is to be valued. So, with this particular project, there were many people from Africa whose talents were outsourced to America and they, were paid. And within the scope of capitalism, that's good because it presents more opportunities to people. However, essentially that visual album was consumed by capitalist standards, meaning that people were consuming this media and it was inherently beneficial but up to a point. And so it disagrees with my second part of my definition, which states that it has the intent to move towards a post patriarchal society. Because Beyonce is a capitalist, because she exists in a certain bracket, the tax bracket, because she practices class solidarity, she will never be for the complete removal of capitalism. And because she does not fall in those lines, she, within that realm of wanting to get rid of capitalism, she does not sort of meet the requirements for an activist. So there were a couple texts that I drew upon. Bell Hooks, Where We Stand, Class Matters. Drawing from her own experience, Bell Hooks explains the intersection of class and race and the intricacies of class within the United States. And I provided a little excerpt down below. When it comes to money and class, they want to protect what they have to perpetuate and reproduce it. They want more. So this was in context to people in a higher tax bracket, but specifically white people. It was them who wanted to protect what they have and perpetuate. However, their black counterparts alongside them were also doing the same thing, but they had to worry with the added rate. They had to worry about the added stress of race and class. In this second bullet point, Audre Lorde, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. Audre Lorde maintains that in order to succeed, we must look beyond the systems of oppression that seek to divide us and celebrate the differences that allow us to move into a post-patriarchal world. For the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. They may allow us to temporarily beat him at his own game. However, they will never enable us to beat him at his own game. I noticed that I said that twice, but essentially, um, she's saying that we don't need to operate within the realms of capitalism. We don't need to seek those sort of temporary um, reliefs like meeting a diversity quota or seeing people succeed just in a capitalist mindset. We need to look beyond that. Those are good for the moment, but we also need to be realizing that in an ideal world, we need to be post patriarchy. So what I found was literature maintained that people within the upper class performed solidarity. However, race did play a significant part in how they were viewed, specifically by other rich people. Black people, Black celebrities utilized their social media platforms as outreach towards Black people to highlight Black issues such as race and colorism. However, the projects Beyonce, such as the liberal album, uh, partic- participate in liberalism and uphold capitalist ideals by commodifying Blackness and profiting off of Blackness, much like corporations such as Nike. So when you're in a certain tax bracket, like Beyonce, when you hold a certain level of influence, you then turn into a capitalist, regardless of skin or race. And I believe that that was referenced on Audre Lorde's, that was referenced by Bell Hooks. So once you become a capitalist, you are then able to perpetuate harm. And so Beyonce as a single entity is acting like a corporation, except these corporations are commodifying wokeness and repackaging it and selling it in order to raise their status. With Beyonce, it's a self commodification because she is a Black woman, even though she is a capitalist. So, the things that we can do in order to avoid putting Beyonce and putting Black capitalists on a pedestal, and quite frankly, turning to capitalism as a means for Black people to seek power within the system, we first have to look past that system in its entirety. We can't look for those small accolades within the system and believe that that's going to give us true liberation, because it's not. We have to abolish celebrity worship, understand that the successes of a handful of high class Black people do not equate to liberation, and we need to practice solidarity as the upper class does. We also need to demand more from celebrities who utilize activism for profit. So even if those people are Black, we still need to look at them and hold them accountable, because their self commodification is not benefiting the rest of the upper or the lower class in any way. And as people, we need to let go of that celebrity worship. And that's the end.